Cool. We are live on Zoom.
Okay. Just a reminder, if we're not speaking, we can turn our screens off, which I need to do as well.
So hi everybody. We will be starting in a few minutes. Thank you all so much for coming. We'll be starting in 3 minutes. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Seamless CUNY Summit. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the event today. We know that many of you are busy, and we really do appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedules to come. Before we begin, I would like to introduce you all to our transfer group team here at Young Invincibles. Once after that is done, then we will dive into our agenda, followed by an icebreaker to give some participation points. Okay, next slide. So this is our transfer group team. First, we have Mahim Ashik, who currently attends CUNY Brooklyn College. Hi, everybody. My name is Javon Thomas, and I currently attend John Jay College of Criminal Justice. This is Nagadi Urena. She currently attends LaGuardia Community College. Joseph Torres, who currently attends Hunter College, and Shing Chung, who currently attends Sarah Lawrence College. Next slide. So this is our breakdown of our agenda for today. First, we will be starting off with an icebreaker. Where we'll be asking a question in regards to our transfer students and which issues you think most impact us, followed by a seamless CUNY research presentation done by Mahim. Then we have two different panels done today. First will be our student panel, followed by our administrative and elected officials panel. Then we have the call to action done by Shane, and then our closing done by Joseph. Next slide. So I will give you guys about 3 minutes. We will start a poll, and the poll will be asking, what do you think the biggest challenge is for our transfer students? You can select any of the following that you think most closely resembles to our transfer students who deals with some of the biggest challenges at their respective colleges. So take 3 minutes to answer. Thank you. We'll give it about just 2 more minutes. For those that have not answered, please do. One more minute. Okay, great. I hope everyone has had a chance to answer. And it looks like most of you said lack of credit transfer. So I'm gonna surprise. All of these issues that we have listed here on this slide uh, coincides with our students. From lack of advising to lack of credit transfer to trouble accessing transcripts to lack of opportunities and financial aid. Many of our transfer students go through these problems on a daily basis, whether they're transferring from a SUNY to CUNY or from a CUNY to another CUNY. For example, lack of advising is heavily common in a lot of our colleges. For students that deal with advising, many have expressed and said that they have had issues advising when it comes to getting classes, when it comes to getting well-known information involving classes that they should take that's geared towards their major, or they may have access to an advisor altogether. Now, for those that deal with financial aid, knows that a lot of times the lines are either too long or the office is not available to a lot of our students, especially our transfer students. Transferring over credits is really common, right? You need credits to complete college. And of course, when that happens, a lot of our students are missing out on credits that need to be transferred over from their respective institution prior to the one that they're at currently. Next slide. And now I will pass it over to Maheen.
Hi, everyone. Again, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to come to our presentation. My name is Maheen Ashik, and I'll briefly explain the purpose of the seamless CUNY research we conducted. We really wanted to understand the issues impacting transfer students today, so we developed this survey and reached out to students across CUNY, SUNY, and independent college across New York. We received 33 responses, smaller than we anticipated, but felt that it was important to share these feedback with you nonetheless. To gather data, we created a survey with various transfer-related questions, and the total of 33 students were from CUNY, SUNY, and independent colleges. However, 80% of the students represent CUNY. Nearly 2/3, 60% of the students transferred from community college to senior college, and 12% transferred within community colleges. We chose 10 questions to analyze. I'll analyze and explain the responses we have gotten to all the 10 questions, and then I'll also briefly add on and give some personal insight to the responses and the results we have gotten from my personal experience as a transfer student. Question 1 is just the overview of respondents. The majority of the responses has been obtained from students who are currently enrolling in senior colleges, also known as four-year colleges, by 78.8%. 21.2% of the responses have been obtained from current community college students. That means that transfer students who are currently enrolled in senior colleges have provided the most data for the survey. Question 2, how would you rate your overall transfer experience from 1 to 5? We asked students to rate their transfer experience. It was a split between experience with 1/3 of the students having a poor or extremely poor experience by 33%, and slightly over 1/3 having a good or excellent experience by 39%. And finally, slightly less than 1/3 were unsure of their experience. This means that there is room for improvements, and over the few slides, I'm going to take a deep dive into some of the issues that may negatively impact seamless transfer experiences for students. Question 3, were all your credits transferred successfully to another four-year institution of your choice? Only 60% of the students reported their credits successfully transferred to the four-year institution of their choice. However, 39.4% of the students reported that their credits did not successfully transfer. This result means that the majority of the students experienced a successful transfer of credits. However, there are still students who experience tech difficulties due to their credits not transferring. I'm sorry. Apologize. For example, I know someone from my statistics class, and he transferred over from Hunter to Brooklyn College. He is a computer science major, and despite taking higher courses in Hunter, he still has to repeat the same courses in Brooklyn College. Repeating courses students already took can be stressful, time-consuming, and financially disadvantageous, since they already took the course beforehand. To promote seamless transfer processes, credits must be successfully transferred for all students from one CUNY to another. Question 4, did you receive assistance from an academic advisor during the transfer process? Over half of the students did not receive assistance from an academic advisor. Receiving support and assistance from an academic advisor is crucial to success in senior colleges, and it's a core characteristic of seamless transfer processes that many transfer students are not likely to experience. Question 5. Do you feel that the school that your transfer school of choice effectively communicated with you throughout the transfer process? Just over half of the students, 51.5%, felt their transfer school of choice effectively communicated with them throughout the transfer process. However, just under half, 48.5% of the students did not feel they experienced effective communication from their transfer school of choice. And what this means is that although over half of the students had a positive experience with communication from transfer school of choice, it is still concerning how 48.5% of the students did not feel they experienced effective communication. As a transfer student myself, I'm part of the 48.5% data, and I did not experience effective communication from my initial choice of college, which was City College. Question 6. How would you rate your experience in communication with your advisor from a scale of 1 to 5? Student experience and communication with advisors was split, with 1/3 having a poor or extremely poor experience, while just over 1/3, 39%, had a good or excellent experience. There is definitive room for improvement because having a good experience and communicating effectively with college advisors are important for all college students, especially when transferring to a new school. The classes may look different, may have different names, criterias, and other specificities that students need help understanding. Question 7. Is there any virtual transfer training or orientation on your campus? We found that the majority of the students are unsure if there is virtual transfer training or orientation resources on their campus by 48.5%. 39.4% of the students reported they have virtual training or orientation as resources on their campus. 12.1% of the students reported not having virtual transfer training or orientation as resources on their campus. Every transfer student should have an awareness of the transfer resources that are being offered in their campuses. With transfer resources and support, students don't have to juggle back and forth to learn more about transfer processes. I realize we're in a virtual space where students may not have to take the time to read emails. And when we were in person, I remember at BCC, the hallways would be covered with flyers related to transfer workshops. But we're not back in campus yet, and schools should figure out creative ways to inform students about these resources and even create more resources for the 12.1% that reported that they do not have any resources. Question 8. How would you rate your experience with financial aid at your new school? When the results were combined, the majority of the students, approximately 19 students, rated their experience with financial aid at their new school as poor or extremely poor. That is very concerning because the majority of the students in CUNY are part of the working class, and they may pay tuition using financial aid services such as TAP and Pell. Changes need to be made. As a transfer student myself, I also experienced a lot of complications with financial aid. Question 9. As a transfer student, did you experience any financial hardship that prevented your registration for the following semester at your new school? Just over half, 51.5%, did not have financial hardship that prevented them from registering for the following semester. However, many students experienced financial hardships that prevented them from registering. For example, just under half of the students, 48.5%, did experience financial hardships that impacted their registration. In the midst of the pandemic, I realized that people lost employment, people also lost family members, and I have personally talked to someone who was almost about to experience eviction. Furthermore, a BCC alum I've talked to some time ago mentioned how she cannot register for classes due to financial struggles, despite successfully completing her associates at BCC. Many CUNY students may be also workers who are juggling to balance between school, work, and their main work duties. If students cannot register for classes due to their financial hardships, CUNY needs to do better to support these students and offer them more options instead of dropping their courses or barring them from attending classes for the next semester. And for our 10th question, we asked students to optionally elaborate further on how transfer processes can be improved. These were the 3 of the responses that were really thoughtful. What are 2 ways transfer processes can be improved or be made even better for future transfer student? A transfer student from Hunter's College suggested the lack of opportunities for transfer students once they transfer, such as taking honors courses, which are only available to freshmen and sophomores. Despite graduating with the highest honors, they were not able to take honors courses. The second student suggested there should be better advising and more support with financial aid. Secondly, the student suggested for senior colleges to promote organization and clubs to their incoming transfer students. The third student's suggestion were very similar to the second student's suggestion, and the recurring theme is related to issues with financial aid and demanding better advising services. To add on, I have experienced complication in both of these areas. And that wraps up the research presentation. I'd like to thank all my team members and ambassadors who put so much effort into promoting this survey and the 33 participants who took the time to complete it. I'll take some questions from the chat now.
Somebody of the audience asked what piece of data was the most surprising? What do you think it was surprising?
I think the data that was the most surprising to me was when the piece actually that I read it, how Hunter College, they're supposedly not offering honors courses to a student who has a 4.0 GPA, and they graduated with the highest honors, because I feel like that really excludes transfer students, and that's just discrimination, because if you're transferring from one institution to the other, you should have the opportunity to take honors courses.
Thank you. And somebody else asked, what kind of recommendation do you have about the survey?
The recommendation that I have about the survey is to expand it even further. I suggest CUNY to do an official survey that consists of transfer students, or maybe CUNY should partner up with Young Invincibles to add on to more of what we already have.
And Rachel asked in the chat, based on your data, do CUNY to SUNY transfer or vice versa encounter more issues with credit transfer or adequate support?
Since majority of our data came from CUNY students, I can't really answer that with yes or no. However, we do have students in our Young Invincibles group who shared their experiences with SUNY credits not transferring over to the CUNY credits, and someone will actually talk more about that today at our speakers panel.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. I think that's, somebody else have any questions?
I think somebody named Saki Lewis asked, are we able to see more of the survey feedback from the Q&A?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. And although this survey initially, yeah, we can definitely do that as a follow-up. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you everyone for your questions. I'm now going to pass the mic to my team member, Shing, who will run the student panel. So take it away, Shing.
Thank you so much, Maheen. This brings us to now our student panel. Hello, everyone. My name is Sheng Chong, and I will be moderating our student panel tonight. I'd like to introduce you and welcome our 4 student panelists tonight. We have Tony Ann. Tony Ann is a senior at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, majoring in public administration. She transferred from SUNY Albany and SUNY Farmingdale to John Jay College and is currently graduating in May. Maheen, she is currently a junior at Brooklyn College. Before transferring to Brooklyn College, she attended Bronx Community College and completed her AA in psychology. Amber Rivero is the vice chair of senior college at the University Student Senate and student government president at John Jay College. Javon is a senior at John Jay College. He currently majors in forensic psychology with a minor in sociology. He transferred over from Bronx Community College with his associate degree in criminal justice. So thank you so much again, panelists, for being here tonight. And if it's okay with you, I love to jump into our questions that we have for you tonight. Just as a reminder, you will all have 2 minutes to answer your specific questions and about a minute to answer the general questions that I posed to the group. Our first question goes to Maheen. Maheen, what was the biggest challenge in the transfer process for you? And how did it impact your track to graduate from college?
Well, the biggest issue that I experienced was a lack of advising. The advisor that I worked from City College, he sort of stopped communicating with me, and I reached out to him so many times, and I emailed him back and forth, and I couldn't really schedule any appointments with other advisors because they had such limited availability and they were not flexible enough.
Thank you so much, Maheen, for sharing that information and for your honesty about your experience. Our next question of the night will be for Javon. So Javon, what was your transfer experience like, and how are you working to improve the experience for others in your position as a student government representative at John Jay College?
So over at BCC at Bronx Community College, I was a part of the CUNY Justice Academy. So for those that don't know, the CUNY Justice Academy is basically a program that's helping out students who are looking to transfer over from a 2-year institution under the CUNY system into John Jay. So for example, I was a criminal justice major. And so what happens is I completed my first 60 credits over at my 2-year, and then I went over to my 4-year at John Jay. My transfer process wasn't too bad. It was a smooth sale process, thankfully. And also serving as a senior representative, we represent a certain body of students at John Jay College. We currently have 60% of transfer students at John Jay. So it is a lot of transfer students that are out of our college, respectfully. So we represent a lot of students in that perspective. And so what we do is we try to make sure that every student voice is heard as possible, whether that being programs, institutions, anything like that.
Thank you so much, Javon. So for your answer, and we appreciate all of the advocacy work and different efforts you put into the CUNY institution. Our next question will be for Tony Ann. Tony Ann, can you tell me about your transfer process and experience and the challenges that you faced transferring from a SUNY to a CUNY?
Yeah, sure. So I think I had a little bit of a different experience compared to, I feel like usually with CUNY, students transfer mostly from community colleges to a CUNY 4-year institution. So my credits were all SUNY based. And I personally assumed, like I know many students and people do, if you take a class at SUNY, it would transfer over seamlessly to CUNY, like History 101 or English 101. And that really wasn't the case. I came in with about 54 credits from my SUNY institutions that I previously went to, and I'd say about 90% of them went into electives, which was quite difficult because imagine, I know many students, all the work I put into those classes, it was kind of, okay, you did it, you're gonna have to start all over again with those general education requirements. And I went through the appeal process, which was a very long few months of going back and forth with my advisor, and I really was rejected So it was quite difficult for me kind of moving back up and trying to graduate on time, because of course I wanted to graduate within 4 years due to financial and just in general, and it was really hard for me.
Thank you so much, Tony. And that was very interesting story. And it was I hope you're doing a better job now. You're doing better with your credits, and you are on track to graduate. So that's really good. We will now hear from Amber. Amber, can you tell us about your experience, transfer experience, and how you are trying to help ease the transition for others as the vice chair at senior college, at the University Student Senate, and also the student government president at John Jay College?
Of course. Thank you so much, Shing. And it's just an honor to be here with the team for Transfer Student Initiatives and Young Invincibles. You're an amazing organization. So I'm always happy to come and talk about what the students need and what the students' experience is. I transferred with an associate's as well in public administration from another CUNY college into John Jay because I just wanted to go to John Jay and I really wanted a different experience within CUNY. And it was definitely a bit of a culture shock for many reasons. John Jay has more students, it's a bigger campus, different environment, way different major that I chose. I would say that I also had a bad experience when it came to transfer credits, even though I was coming from another CUNY school and I had more than 60 credits, sorry, and a whole degree. And also, you know, students ended up being a great resource for me, other transfer students who had figured out how to navigate the system and all the bureaucracy that exists within CUNY, unfortunately. So I was able to get through some of my credits being accepted with students advising me, actually. And I was able to experience the SASP transfer student experience, which is like a student academic success program, sorry, that exists at John Jay. And it's a great model for transfer students. You get to go into a class that counts towards your major, but there's like 30 other students or 25 other students that are from transfer, that are also transfer students, and you get to find out about events and programs and opportunities just for transfer students. I did wish that at the time there would have been access to more cohorts or specialized programs, especially the honors program at John Jay. But as transfer representative last year and a junior, I was able to work with my other colleague on student government, Carlos Hines, to try to see if we could advocate for there to be access for transfer students to go into the honors program at John Jay, and now that currently exists. And there are a number of other programs that John Jay admin are leading CUNY in by creating funding, creating these proposals, and trying to implement these different pilots to support our 60% student population that's transfer students, and see if these pilot programs are successful, which we know they will be. Can this be expanded with more funding and more resources? And should this be the model that CUNY should go after? So thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amber. That's very informative. And we appreciate the work that you do at John Jay. Now we will open the floor up to everyone. I have a couple questions, but feel free if you want to ask any questions, just type it in the chat and I'll be reminded. First question I have for the student panel is, when you got to your transferred college, did you feel like you were well informed in the way things were working over there? For example, advisors, what was your advising experience like? Financial aid, and we talked a lot about the credit transferring process as well.
I'll go. So at Brooklyn College, honestly, the financial aid office, they're not very responsive at all. And I feel like I had a better experience at BCC. So the transfer advisor I was assigned to, she never got back to me. I emailed her back and forth. I also emailed the department back and forth. And just over before 1 week of the semester, they reached out to me and they finally confirmed with me that, hey, we processed everything. But it's just amazing because I was there throughout the whole month, emailing them back and forth about confirmation because I was chosen for verification. And I was not happy with that.
My advisor was very all over the place. So I remember walking into her office and she was on lunch. So I walked in and she was eating a chicken sandwich. but she was supposed to see me. It was very awkward walking in to John Jay and that being my first advisement experience. I feel like a lot of times with advisement, it could be better. I think more advisors should be aware of our students on campus that have transferred over. And I think there should just be more advisors for our students, all over. John Jay is a pretty big campus, so there's a lot of students to accommodate. And I feel like the number of advisors at our campus now is not enough. But pretty much I went to my transfer orientation at John Jay. I met the president. I saw our mascot. I was able to walk around John Jay, see the jaywalk, and it was confusing because at John Jay we have like L.2. So like if you are on level like 2, it'll say L2 dot something something. Or if you're on the second floor, it says 2 dot this. So it was weird seeing the number of the classes like that because I never saw that before. But it was a unique experience because I kind of felt like John Jay was going to give me something different. But I was also nervous because it's a big campus, and so I was a little lost, but I was able to find my way around. So yeah.
I'll go next. Talking off of Javon, I'm at John Jay too, and I was a transfer. So I definitely had the transfer orientation. We got to see the mascot, the administration, which was definitely helpful. But in terms of advisement, I do completely agree. John Jay has so many students and so many transfer students. I think we're one of the most colleges with the highest amount of transfer students, but there's a very small advisement criteria. And it was very difficult for me to get an appointment. Then after that, they understand my specific transfer needs since I am a little bit of an odd case. So I really feel like they do need more funding and more academic advisors to really help these students out because as Javon said, we were struggling. It was hard. It's such a culture shock going into a different school and such a large environment. And it would be really helpful to have more navigation with that.
I'll jump in. So I want to start by saying I loved John Jay so much, but I had a very unique and very negative experience my first week as a student at John Jay because of a lot of those front-facing offices, similar to what everyone else is sharing, like advisement or financial aid. At the time, I was in this special program through the university called CUNY Baccalaureate for Unique and Interdisciplinary Studies. And even though it's like a 50-year-old program, there's still a lot of kinks and administrative issues with it across the university. So when I first got to John Jay, I was like registered for I think over 15 credits, but for some reason I had never gotten billed my tuition and I had to go back and forth for 3 days from different offices and all the way back to CUNY Central, who bumped me back to John Jay just to get a code switched in my CUNY First account that then rectified everything. But I was about to be kicked out of all of my classes and not get to stay at John Jay that first semester. And it was really frustrating, discouraging, and obviously disheartening for me as a brand new student who was so excited to come to this new school, having to navigate for 3 days, all these different offices, make phone calls and emails and just try to figure out what was wrong. But I would say that if I wasn't involved with student leadership, I might have had a more isolated and less welcoming experience, because I think that the only reason I was able to navigate and get through those situations is because I did have some connection with a few advisors or admin through my student government role that I had joined during the summer. And so it gave me that advantage to know who I was supposed to contact to ask for advice. But for a student who's coming to the school and not connected and may not have that resource, it must have been that much more difficult.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think I agree. Like, if you are in the student government at your new college, it helps people like you and Javon to really succeed. There's more resources at the college, and you feel more familiar with the school, and that definitely helps. Which leads to my next question. Actually, we are all transfer students, and we've gone through that. So, what is one piece of advice you would give to transfer students who's doing the transfer process right now?
Please, 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 please get involved on campus. As a freshman at my 2 year, I came to school and I went home. I came to school and I went home. it made for a very boring freshman year. And so what I did was I changed it up. So I got involved into a club, and then I became president of that club before I graduated. And then I came to John Jay and I joined the Urban Middle Initiative program. And then I began working at the admissions office as a college assistant. And then I ran for senior representative for student council, and I was sworn in last summer. So I would say, it is hard for transfer students because we're coming to a new environment and we're not really too familiarized with the college that we're at. We did our research and we know the college, but we don't know the college, if that makes sense. So, coming to John Jay, I was like really, it was big on the picture, but then to see it in person was a little bit more terrifying. But as you continue to go into your first year at John Jay, it gets easier, and so if you know of any clubs or organizations that interest you, or something that you've been looking forward to doing at your 2 year but you couldn't do it, so you came to your 4 year, or if you're going from a 2 year to a 2 year, I would say definitely look into all the clubs that they have available. If they have any student government positions available, or if anything that you want to do at your campus, I would say please go for it. You get a newer experience at the college.
My piece of advice would be definitely, including Javon, be involved on campus and really meet other students. I would say really use students as your resource, because John Jay has so many students and such a diverse group, and they're such amazing people I've met throughout my years here, and they have so much information that you might not know. It was my first day, and just to pick some students' brains, I would ask them a few questions about John Jay. And even my internship I have now, I found out about the organization through one of my classmates I was sitting next to. So it's really use other students as your resource. They come from so many diverse backgrounds and areas, and of course, everyone's always learning, and you can learn so much even from the person sitting right next to you. So go out of your comfort zone, introduce yourself, and you really would learn a lot.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. Just try to have more conversations with people from that specific school instead of just depending on just going to workshops and not, trying to connect with other transfer resources can give you a better picture of it. And I wish I had that experience, but I never really met anyone who transferred to Brookline College.
Thank you all.
So I
Oh, yes,
sorry.
sorry. Amber, go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what everyone was sharing and say that I really agree with Tony and Javon, especially about transfer students and other students, even if they're 4-year students, graduate students, being a resource at the school. Students are amazing at John Jay. Students are the reason why I love John Jay so much. And I think there's no other college in the CUNY system that has students quite as amazing as John Jay students. But all that being said, I would really advise students, if they are planning on transferring to a CUNY college but have not gotten accepted yet, find out all of the resources that exist, make these phone calls before you even find out if you were accepted for the honors program, different cohorts. If you're currently in a CUNY college in an ASAP, find out whether that college has ASAP transfer programs, because if it's not Lehman, it probably doesn't. If you're considering joining ASAP or SEEK and you're a freshman or a sophomore, I would lean towards SEEK if you're eligible, because SEEK does transfer to a 4-year college, whereas ASAP at the moment does not, except for Lehman within the CUNY system and maybe like 3 majors at Medgar Evers. And just really ask those questions in advance. If you already got your acceptance letter and you're transferring in from another college, go ahead and still ask as many questions, contact as many departments, and find out what you're eligible for so you can get ahead of those deadlines and get connected right away, whether it's a student organization, student government, or internships, Black Male Initiative, Urban Male Initiative, anything of the sort. Staying connected is the best way to succeed.
Thank you so much for that, Amber, and everybody else's answer. I'm going to continue taking questions. This is from Saki Lewis again, and he said, how can students interested in transferring connect with other transfer students? Maybe on campus, at the current school, online, or at the potential transfer school. I think my personal experience came from mostly Facebook groups. I had some I met some people over the Facebook groups that are coming into my college just like I am. I don't know what your experiences were like.
I'll go first. So one thing that I'm so grateful for to this day, I went on Facebook and I did a little reach out for transfer students, and I found out during community hour at John Jay, they were having a transfer workshop. So it was with, I'd say 20 to 30 students like me, and I really got to make so many connections with other people, and I learned so much. And that's really, I think, what helped me even get through these 2 years, because I'd say 99% of the things I learned was from that workshop. And I had an amazing advisor, Natasha Graff, who works for transfer services, and she gave us a boatload of information that really helped me. And I also gave this information to other transfer students who maybe weren't able to get into this workshop. So definitely sign up for anything you can and try to, anyone you talk to, if you know they're a transfer, go out of your shell and speak to them, because they probably know so much information.
I'll go next. So I agree with Tony Ann. I also went to that same workshop, and Natasha Graff and I believe Keisha Lewis came to Bronx Community College. So I forgot to mention, you have to go to an orientation too when you're a part of the CUNY Justice Academy, so you know how to transfer over to John Jay. And the workshop was very helpful. I have to say it made me more comfortable, and I also got to meet a couple of people, a couple of transfer students that I can now call a colleague or a friend. And we even share, like, a lot of students too have, so our two top majors at John Jay is criminal justice and forensic psych. And I, of course, I'm a forensic psych major. So I saw like a lot of students were forensic psych majors. So we had that in common. So we had a lot of classes together. So the workshops, networking is very important too. Going over to a brand new institution, you get to learn more about that as you continue on. So yeah.
Yeah. Like Tony Ann said, I think in terms of these virtual times, I think going on Facebook and just reaching out to other transfer students and maybe saying if there are Facebook groups or maybe Discord groups, just try to get to know them and to get more information. And when I know some students are going to go back on campus, there is a likelihood that we are going to go back in the fall. And for those students, please reach out to transfer students from the one that you want to go to.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Natasha Graff is an amazing resource for transfer students at John Jay and helped me through so much, even though I was not a CUNY Justice Academy student, but I was just a transfer student who needed help. And she is a crazy asset to transfer students and to John Jay as a whole, her and Olena in the SAS program for transfer students. And it sounds like John Jay is much more cushioner. I just made up a word. It's a more soft experience, I guess, for transfer students compared to other CUNY schools, because it seems like we have more resources. So I would say that, like, the Facebook groups is a really good way to engage beforehand, like Shane offered. And in those Facebook groups, you can ask questions, people respond back to you. But there's a number of other platforms, like John Jay has 2 separate Discord channels and servers right now with multiple students and multiple majors, right? And all different interests. There's like lots of different social medias for class of 21, class of 22, class of 23, lots of ways to just get connected with other students, even virtually right now. But then as soon as you do get to come on campus, like, just get out of your shell at your transfer orientation or your, first day, like convocation, whatever your ceremony is at your local campus, and meet other transfer students, because that is one thing that was always really difficult to try to overcome as a transfer representative last year in student government, was how do we help transfer students on campus identify other transfer students? So quite often we would get out in the main areas and we would do a lot of tabling. We would ask different offices and different departments to come and speak about things that would help transfer students, and do those different events with SAS, like the transfer speed networking and all these other things. And there's a plethora of resources there for all transfer students at John Jay. It's just really getting connected to them. But that's a difficult barrier to overcome at every school, is like, how do other transfer students identify that they're other transfer students? You don't walk around with a sticker that says, I'm a transfer, So I think that's something that would take more thought and more vision in implementing across the system.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I have one final question, which is about how has How has the Pathways curriculum impacted the transfer process for your degree completion? Did it make it easier to complete those requirements once you transferred?
I'll go. I'll go first. So, before transferring over to John Jay, I was a part of ASAP. So I met with my advisor twice a month. And so we would sit down and, whatever classes that I needed to take, whether it be general requirements or any classes towards my major, we would check it off each semester. I really do appreciate my ACE supervisor so much. Without him, I don't think I would have been able to graduate on time from BCC. So just you're given a sheet basically with your major, and you just check off the boxes that you for classes that you already took, or any requirements you already met. So I was very thankful for that. I know for my major, I had to take two sciences, two writing intensive classes, probability and statistics, and I believe three Englishes I had to take.
I'll go next. I know Pathways is a great, usually I've heard CUNY to CUNY students have had a great opportunity, but I know especially SUNY to CUNY, I didn't really have the best. I think CUNY and SUNY really need to work together more, since there are so many students who go back and forth and kind of honor the credits, because I really still don't understand how I could take a class in a major, let's say political science 101, but it doesn't transfer over to CUNY, because I did do similar work and I know there's so many students who feel this way. So maybe opening it up and making it more inclusive, and even private colleges, so I really could have a more seamless experience, that could help me out.
I didn't directly benefit from Pathways, unfortunately. So again, one of the biggest issues I had coming into another CUNY college was trying to advocate for the credits I had already been awarded and worked so hard for, being accepted, and having to learn how to find equivalent courses and make my argument that these should be accepted at John Jay, right, with the testing and credit evaluation office. But I was able to successfully do so. One thing I would say though is that I think that it was a great starting point, Pathways, but there's obviously lots of more room for improvement, and there needs to be a lot more strategizing around it. And I know that the university had created a transfer student or transfer task force that was made up of multiple different voices. And I'd really like to see the information that yields from that task force, and where the university goes in this particular area afterwards. Because even with CUNYs, I remember helping a transfer student my junior year who was a political science major like myself, and she had come from CCNY, and she lost like almost 15 or 18 credits coming from CCNY right up the street, right, to John Jay in the same major, and was like in tears because they were all turning into electives, and she was going to have to basically repeat almost an entire semester to graduate at John Jay. And I don't think there's any reason, especially CUNY to CUNY, why there should be that much difficulty and why it should be such a rough transition. And the student said, if I knew that, I would have stayed at CCNY. I was so excited to come to John Jay. And I just never want to see another student experience that. So I think Pathways is a great idea. And I think there's probably just a lot more room for improvement and expansion.
Thank you so much for answering all that. And I think this wraps up our student panel. Once again, thank you so much to all of our panelists for taking the time out of your evenings to share your experiences with us. By sharing your story, you have allowed more students to understand the challenges that they face in order to improve the CUNY's transfer system. And we thank you so much again. I hope that you've all enjoyed this panel, and will now pass it to my teammate, Nikawi, who will introduce us to the next portion of our agenda.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nika Ureña. Thank you for joining us today. We have heard from our students so far. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists for our next panel. Please join me in welcoming them. We have now Dr. Dara Bryne, is the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Retention and Dean of Undergraduate Studies at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. She's also a member of CUNY Transfer Steering Committee that is working to improve the transfer process at current institution. We also have Assemblymember Chantel Jackson, who represents New York Assembly District 79. Assemblymember Jackson was a transfer student within CUNY and graduated from City College with a bachelor's degree in psychology and later received her graduate degree from Adelphi School of Social Work. We also have Lesley Leppert, is the Director of Program Management and Staff Development for CUNY ASAP, ACE within the Office of Academic Affairs. Lesley works with colleges to manage and develop program policies and processes, as well as coordinate professional development opportunities for campus staff. And now we have Donna Linderman, is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs within the CUNY Office of Academic Affairs. She supports the academic preparation and degree success of CUNY students, including ASAP, ACE, CUNY Star Math, CUNY H, and other programs. Thank you all for joining us today. We are happy that you are able to provide insight of what you are doing to help transfer students persist through college. I will go ahead and ask each of you a question, and you have 4 minutes to answer. We will open it up to questions from the audience for the entire panel. A reminder to the audience to drop a question into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. We will be picking questions from what you have heard. Now let's get started. The first question is for Vice Chancellor Linderman. Thank you for being here with us. And the question is, what is CUNY doing to help create a seamless transfer for students? And what specific efforts are being made to increase credit transfer across CUNY institutions?
So thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to see such a big group here. So transfer has really taken on a system-wide focus at the university. It's something that is being considered as an issue across all areas of the university, from an academic and a curricular perspective, to an enrollment management and admissions perspective, research perspective, as well as a technological perspective. And I'd like to highlight some of the many things that we're doing as a system to emphasize the intense focus on our part as a university, that we are very aware at the system as well as the campus level that we have to do better with transfer. We serve over 24,000 transfer students every year, and we should not make it difficult for students to move within the system or into the system. So a couple of things we're doing. At the most senior level, we have a transfer steering committee that's led by 2 of our presidents, that's been working for almost 2 years now to really identify and zero in on some of the transfer pain points. And I had the chance to hear a couple of students at the tail end of the last panel talking about some of the pain points that they experienced, whether it was credits not transferring in as within their majors, classes that weren't recognized, having to take extra credits, or just confusion about the process itself. So the steering committee it's cross-functional in nature. Some of my fellow panelists are on it, and we're looking at all of these various pain points and trying to look at what some of the various solutions are that are being developed within the university. Is it a technology solution? Is it information? Is it curricular? What can we do to make this a more seamless process for our students? And how can the various units not work in silos, but together to smooth that pathway? This is bolstered by our chancellor's participation on a national task force on transfer. And a report was just dropped by that task force, which I'll put in the chat when I'm done. At the level of curriculum, and I picked this up in the last panel, a lot of students who transfer from community to senior colleges particularly struggle with classes transferring in as gen ed or elective, but not within their majors. So CUNY is launching what's called a Major Gateways 2.0 project, where we're looking at courses within the highest transfer majors in terms of number of students who are moving through large majors from community to senior colleges, particularly in accounting and finance, computer sciences and systems, public health and health services, and identifying courses that are accepted by both by the senior colleges from the community colleges, so that students don't have to retake any courses once upon transfer. So this is work that's being funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And when this work is done later this year, it will help students across 80 majors transfer more seamlessly, getting credits for courses within their majors. There's another project called the Articulation of Credit Transfer, ACT, funded by our friends at the Heckscher Foundation and Petrie. That's looking at some of the inefficiencies in evaluating transfer credit. So as anyone that's moved within the system knows, it's pretty inefficient and archaic, where sometimes students have to run around on a campus to get their transfer credits evaluated by faculty. This grant is looking at a much more seamless and automated way of having transfer credits evaluated so that there's not inefficiencies in the actual process and how long it takes. I'll just mention two other key strategies. One is partnerships between feeder colleges, so community colleges that feed into senior colleges, working in much more intentional partnership, looking at when students enter a community college to how they can be queued up to transfer more effectively. So the Bronx Transfer Affinity Group is a group of Bronx and Manhattan community colleges that transfer large numbers of students into Lehman College. So it's 5 colleges working together, and they're looking at how they can work with students from an advisement and information, and a preparation level so that students are queued up to transfer from the minute they walk in the door in the community college. And it's seen as an us rather than an ours or theirs process. And it's a real model that other boroughs across the city are thinking about doing. So very tight relationship between colleges, thinking about how we can help students move more seamlessly between campuses. We also have another initiative that many of you may know about called reverse transfer, where if a student leaves a community college before they've completed an associate degree and goes to a senior college, there's a way to transfer credits back to the community college so they can earn that associate degree, even if they've already moved on to pursue their bachelor's. And since that began over the past couple of years, thousands of students have earned sort of an en route associate degree, even if they left a community college before earning their associates. We also have an array of research projects looking at various junctures in the pipeline. What happens when students say they're transferring, they've graduated from a community college, do they actually show up at a senior college? And looking at kind of that transfer melt process and who that affects most. And then finally, an array of technology tools, many of which are student facing, such as, I'll just mention one, the Transfer Explorer, or TREX as we like to call it. That's an online tool that allows users to very quickly see how their credits transfer to any college. And this can be used for students at any juncture in their progress. And then an array of tools within DegreeWorks like Transfer What If, that kind of lets you compare and contrast colleges to see where you get the most bang for your buck with your credits. And then finally, a wonderful transfer hub or website that answers a broad array of questions for transfer students and points you in the right direction so you don't have to sift through multiple websites. And I'll put the link to that in the chat. So I know I probably went over my 4 minutes. I was talking as fast as I could. I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer questions when we get to that portion.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. Well, we got another question for you in the next slide.
Okay.
What is CUNY short-term and long-term vision for creating a seamless track?
So I think I started to answer some of that, but I guess I would say, if I was going to synthesize, what we're doing short-term is there's many different things that are being done across the university right now to address the challenges with transfer. I think our short-term goal is to make sure that there's a synthesis of all of the tools that can be used right away to get those into the hands of the staff and the faculty to use them to help students understand what they are. And most importantly, to speak directly to you, to students, about these are the tools available to you. These are the resources and the information to help you make the most informed decision and to guide your process to transfer. So we want to make sure all of those tools and resources are marshaled at all levels and made available to students. And that if there's confusion about any of them, we want to know what they are so we can address them. Long term, we want to make sure, I would say, I don't speak for our chancellor, but I think it's safe to say that as a system, we really want every student that walks in the door at CUNY, if you begin at a community college, that you see a very clear, explicit pathway to help you move from your associate degree to a bachelor's degree, if that is your pathway, and that you know how to take those steps or who to go to if you need help with that. So we want to make sure the pathway is explicit. We want to make sure it's easy to follow, and we want to, if barriers remain, remove them as they are identified. But it is our hope that the marshaling of the tools, the resources, the research, and the partnerships that I've mentioned remove as many barriers so that there is a streamlined, if you take the B or the D train from West 4th Street up to 34th Street and there's no stops along the way, that's what we want to see.
Thank you so much. And we will now hear from Assemblymember Chantel Jackson. Assemblymember Chantel Jackson, given your experience as a CUNY graduate and transfer students, what do you think CUNY should be doing to better support its transfer?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here for this important conversation. And I think CUNY has done a lot since I graduated, more than 10 years ago. And one of the issues that we were having was that it was not clear on how the transfer process works and what credits will be transferring over when you go from maybe a 2-year school to a 4-year school, or just transferring from a different 2-year school to another 2-year school. And so it was just really hard to find information. And so what I would say, one of the things that's an easy fix is around having one system where since we're one community, one system that speaks to how credits are the same from one campus to another. Sorry, I live in the Bronx, it's kind of loud. So if we had one system where I can like plug in all my credits and see what school would take those credits for that major, that would be helpful. Also, having enough academic advisors to deal with the student population that we have, because a lot of the questions that we that arise for us when we go to ask it takes so many steps to get it done. And now that we're remote, a lot of it is online, so a lot of it get lost in translation with emails and things like that. So we really want to be able to call someone and say, hey, how will this affect me if I move from York College to City College or whatever the case may be?
Thank you. We got a follow-up question. And how can the state support more equitable pathways? If so, how?
So thinking about pathways, I would say, I'm not really sure. I think this is one that I feel like I will want to hear from students and hear about what it is that we're looking to do. Money is always great, right? So the state, we passed the budget, doing our best to close the tap gap and things like that. So of course, those are things that we could do. But I think when it comes to support, besides us funding CUNY the way we're supposed to, I would love to hear from students. I think this is better. This is more a student-based question than from me, the legislature.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember Jackson. And we would like to hear now for Dean Byrne. Dean Byrne's John Jay has been a model of success for graduate and transfer students. What makes John Jay so unique in its approach? Do you think this model can be scaled up across other CUNY institutions? And if so, what will it take for this to happen?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you again. This is one of my favorite groups to speak to. John Jay, I'm really proud of what I read about John Jay and hearing that we are a leader in CUNY in terms of transfer student success, because that is not a story that didn't come without a lot of work and commitment. John Jay started where many of the schools are right now that are talking about processes and course equivalencies and so on. And that evolved into looking more deeply at program alignment, which is very different from an individual course equivalency, as well as an issue that many of the students on the panel spoke about, which is an issue of belonging. So what's made us unique is that we really practice a whole community model. And what I mean by that is that we take a look at every aspect of the institution and work on our shared values, commitments, priorities, and processes, program alignment, and all of those things that go into the experience of being a student or being part of a community. If you think about it this way, when you start on any kind of integration project, and we can think about several landmark integration projects in this country alone, most of the time people began with the issue of getting people in the building. Those who were excluded, those who were denied resources, those who can't access something, getting them in the building. So course equivalencies is kind of like that. How do we make this count or equate to the same thing? But an integration story isn't just about getting in the building. It's about how you live in the building once you get there. Are you able to plant roots? Are you able to flourish? How are you received? And that's the part about belonging. And what's important about John Jay is that we have centered the faculty in this. I tend to underscore this whenever I get the chance to speak on transfer success. We can't leave our faculty out of the conversation. Faculty develop relationships, important relationships with students. They're the ones who you're learning from. They're the ones who create courses. They're the ones who change courses, and they are the ones who need to be in the room to commit to the idea that one course from another institution or a major at another institution is a pathway to the major that they helped to design. So sometimes that can be thought of as gatekeeping. Other times that can be thought of as transformational leadership opportunities. And we found that when you put faculty from an array of campuses and common disciplines in the same room together, they went to the same schools, they have the same degrees, they know this stuff. But sometimes they might be looking at a course in terms of one or two modules that were really important to them and their scholarship. And another person looks at it as another set of modules or issues that are really important to them. To the student, it looks exactly the same, but the faculty are the ones that credential. It's not the credit evaluator. It's definitely not me. It's the faculty who create your courses. So if they're left out of the transfer conversation, then we have no chance at the whole community approach, at shared values, shared processes, and doing what I think is most important, creating a place of belonging. So that's what's unique about John Jay. And you know what? We have to try. You have to try to get belonging and inclusion. It's not good enough to say the model can't be scaled. I refuse to accept that. More of us need to try and set that as a goal. But again, it depends on each campus and where their starting point is. But we definitely evolved from equivalencies to program alignment to now a whole community transfer success model.
Great, thank you. We have one more question for you, is on the next slide. You are a member of the Transfer Steering Committee. Can you tell us more about the recommendation and other efforts the committee is developing to better support seamless CUNY?
Okay, so I'm just going to give a quick clarification. I was invited to the Transfer Steering Committee as well as the Degrees NYC Transfer Task Force. And so my chief partner on transfer Programming, who's the director of external partnerships in my office. She and I split the roles. So she sits on that committee. I sit on Degrees NYC Transfer Task Force, and we speak probably every day about what is happening on both of those committees and the work that's happening. We also write a lot of grants together and things like that to support transfers. So in terms of the recommendations, what I'm super excited about with this work is that we're getting to see a real inflection point for CUNY, a real opportunity to change something that could mean, I mean, a profound impact for students who are interested in earning their bachelor's degree, and also thinking about our transfer students in the way that they should be thought of. Students who were successful at another institution who want to continue their success at your institution. And that is a really important and distinguishing feature, that everyone who transfers to us is coming there, especially at John Jay, coming there through a point of success and deserves to be treated like that. So I appreciate seeing that the work of the Transfer Steering Committee really honors what is happening in the transfer phenomenon. Successful students going on to earn sometimes a second or third degree. The recommendations that I've been seeing really show the opportunity for every single senior college to have a starting point. We have examples where some campuses are focusing on processes or credit equivalencies, the lag in credit evaluation and addressing that, which is really critical and important. We see campuses like SLU and the Labor Campus and Gutman, as well as I saw it in the chat, Baruch and BMCC that are working on their program alignment. And then of course, there's the John Jay model, which is the whole community approach. In other words, what it means to be a transfer institution as opposed to a series of transfer programs. And so there's really something in there in the recommendations for every single campus, depending on where the campus culture is, the campus resources are, what the data is telling us. There's something there for everyone. And that's no easy feat, because as much as we would like to be one system, we're one system with several different cultures within that system, several different communities within that system. So there isn't really one size fits all approach. I think we'll get there one day, but what this allows is for everybody to start where they truly are and determine what their goals are in advancing their agenda bit by bit. So I'm super excited about that.
Thank you. Completely agree. Thank you. Now we will now hear from Lesley. And Lesley, as a leader of ASAP, can you speak to how this program may help students successfully transfer? What aspect of this program can be scaled to better support transfer? If so, what will it take to make this happen?
Thank you. Great question. So developmental advisement and advisement is teaching and learning are advisement approaches that are integral to the ASAP model. We use both to foster self-directed behaviors and instill a sense of self-advocacy in our students very early on, so they can feel confident to seek out information, tools, and resources as we partner with them through their transfer journey. So initially, one of the things all of our staff work with students to do in the very beginning is an intake session, which serves to bring any challenges or resources that students may need to be successful to the surface early on, so we can front load them with support necessary to start them off on the right foot. Many times, these intake interviews ask students about prior academic experience, thereby letting us know if they'd been at another college previously, as well as what their plans are after graduation, and specifically if they'll be transferring on for a bachelor's degree. This way, we have information from the beginning to assist and guide those who may have been transferred into our programs, as well as those who have plans to transfer on after they complete. Our advisement priorities as part of our general model also support transfer. Both short-term and long-term goal setting is an advisement priority with our students in the first semester. During this process, we can ascertain if the students have transfer goals and create a transfer plan that supports them. These goals are revisited multiple times throughout a student's tenure in ASAP, so we can adjust and tweak our supports along the way if needed. Our advisement model also includes group advisement opportunities for students with many transfer-related topics, as well as opportunities to connect to different transfer resources at the college, beginning in their second and third semesters. Our program provides staff development opportunities for both students and staff to become familiar with a lot of the tools that Vice Chancellor Linderman just spoke about, the TREX, the DegreeWorks What If feature, the CUNY First Evaluate My Credit feature. The collaborative nature of our program on college campuses also assists to support transfer students. In understanding the process, many cases our programs partner with college transfer advisement offices to provide workshops around the process, around application and essay assistance, articulation agreements, and scholarships. And in addition, our programs also partner with academic departments as well to provide information on majors and careers. Our program staff are encouraged to connect and to attend events through larger CUNY-wide transfer initiatives as well. For instance, BTAG, the Bronx Transfer Affinity Group. So to answer your second question, which is, can aspects of the program be scaled? And if so, what would it take? Yeah, I certainly think, our program itself has scaled. We're up to serving approximately 25,000 students now. But as far as programmatic efforts, I think our staff development efforts, as well as our group workshop curricula, especially in this remote environment, can be scaled to provide multiple opportunities for learning and development without travel, and can be recorded for anytime learning. Our intake process is also something that could be scaled, possibly by using an electronic survey software. We currently use Qualtrics for features like that. And as far as what I think, would be needed to make scaling happen, I think you would need a commitment from leadership. I think you would need buy-in from all stakeholders. I think it would also need, you would also need a willingness on the part of everybody to be flexible and to be okay with change.
That's true. And we have another question. What efforts are being made for advisors to successfully committing with and supporting students in the transfer process? In addition, how is the institution accountable for successfully advising and meeting the needs of its transfer students?
Sure. So under the leadership of my co-panelist here, Vice Chancellor Linderman, I was lucky to be part of a group that coordinated a series of online CUNY-wide staff development for advisors that started in late spring of 20 in response to the need for advisement technology training due to the pandemic. At that time, we had 6 events through the spring and summer that were very well attended with over 900 staff, the first of its kind across CUNY. Now that we had the experience of using the Zoom platform to provide these opportunities, we weren't bound by participant limitations, and we were able to get information to a large number of people at one time. As we requested feedback from these initial sessions, it became very clear to us that staff wanted information to help them better serve their transfer students. In response to that, and in alignment with all of the transfer work that CUNY was doing, we began to develop a second set of staff development opportunities centered on transfer supports. In November, we held a TREX demonstration with about 175 participants. In February, we offered a presentation on supporting students with vertical transfer with 104 participants. And in March, we collaborated with our CBO partners, including Marissa and some of the panelists here in the Young Invincibles, Graduate NYC, and the Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, to offer a guided discussion with a panel of transfer students who, through their stories and experiences, were able to highlight information, tools, resources, and conversations that were helpful to them, as well as conversations, tools, and resources that they wish they had. 121 staff were in attendance at that event. So we were also able to document their takeaways in a sort of cheat sheet for advisement staff that was added to the Dropbox folder where the presentation materials are housed. So all of the staff development events have been recorded and closed captioned and will be available on the CUNY Academic Advisement webpage very soon for all to access and to view and to share. And in addition, a new CUNY Advisor listserv has been created, and once fully up and running, will be a vital resource to send and share advisement information, events, and resources, including information for transfers across the entire CUNY advising community.
Thank you so much for that. And now we will move on to the general question. And this is for you all to answer. You have 1 minute for that. What are ways that students can support this issue both on and off the campus?
I'd like to take that. I know I touched on this at the very tail end of my remarks. So I know a lot of tools and resources have been mentioned so far. It's so incredibly, and all of them are developed with students giving feedback along the way. But once some of these tools are out, like T-Rex, Transfer What If, the Transfer Hub, it's so important that we hear directly from students who are using these tools to tell us, like, are they as helpful as we hope they would be? And if you are continuing to run into any issues with something that should transfer, for example, as a major course, we really want to know about it in a timely manner. And by we, I mean, the staff and faculty at your college of attendance or the college you're headed towards in the moment. I'll let Dara talk more about kind of the cultural piece, but I think it is so important that we also hear from students about how they feel in terms of the reception they receive when they're going through the process of transferring, and then when they arrive, at a senior college. There should be no difference in how anyone is treated, but I know for a fact transitions are hard. We have transfer scholarship program within ASAP and a number of the programs I support, and we hear over and over again from students, with a few exceptions. John Jay is a very major exception, as is Lehman, but it's really important that we hear about what is the kind of transfer shock experience, if there is one, and in very concrete terms. It's very important that we hear. I mean, I'm a former faculty member. I value hearing directly from my students. This was my experience when I went to this office, and asked X or Y. I think it's so important that we hear immediately what that feedback is from students.
I agree wholeheartedly with VC Linderman. It can be really daunting when you're in a new place to think that speaking up is going to make a difference, how you'll be received, whether you'll be negatively impacted as a result of that. So I would like to think that an important place that students, particularly student leaders like you, can support this work is making your student colleagues, your peers, comfortable and confident about the idea of using the power of their voice. Most of the things that have happened at John Jay and the things that have happened quickly, it's because students talked about it. Students talked about it. And when you start bringing things to our attention, I mean, I'm out here saying that I want a whole community culture. I want an institution that's transfer affirming. I mean, the things that the student panel talked about, I started firing off emails immediately based on what I was hearing, because these are the things that hold us accountable for what it is that we're trying to do. We write down goals every year and targets and all of those kinds of things, which are great, but the targets are people, right? It's not just numbers and data. These are human beings and your real lives. So student leaders, you're an important space for advocacy, and it is to continue to be out there, to be vocal and set the tone on your campuses that it is okay for students to speak the truth of their experience, because that's how change really happens. And, I'm forever indebted to students for seeing me as someone that they can knock on the door or send an email in any tone but I prefer the nice ones, in any tone to really express what is going on, because that's a very loving act to say that I believe that when I send this message, something will happen. So please start thinking and talking about how you can strengthen that for your colleagues that may not yet feel as confident as you are about that.
I was just wondering if Lesley could say a couple of words, because it's the whole notion of kind of goal setting and self-advocacy is such a central tenet of our ASAP advisement model. We really want our students to advocate for themselves, you know, to do exactly what Doris was just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to piggyback on both of what both of you said, is because helping students to find their voice and to, as everybody here has said, you know, sharing your experience, whether it's good or bad, is important. It's important for change to happen. It's important to let other people on the campus know that change is okay. And it's important for you to fight for what is important to you and what's going to make your experience or the student's experience better. It's important to make programming better. I mean, the more students can fight for what they believe in and fight for what they feel will be a better experience for others, will help the people who make the decisions understand that change is okay. And if there's a large population of students who really feel, you know, there might be an issue with X or Y could be done better, there'll be a point where somebody will stop to listen. You know, CUNY is made up of a lot of wonderful administrators who are really, really student-centered. And so just helping students find their voice and helping students feel confident, as everybody said, and advocating for themselves and doing some research themselves. And students have to be their own advocate. Sort of, you know, that's not something that's a skill that's very present immediately in a student, and they have to little by little chip away at that to become more confident and to sort of own that. And that is a piece of the ASAP program that we try to encourage within students early on and try to give them opportunities to do that. So down the road, speaking up and explaining when something doesn't feel right or when a change needs to be made just comes natural, you know, obviously in a respectful manner, but change can happen and change does happen. The more students can talk about it with everybody, with their advisor, with each other, with administrators.
And faculty.
Thank you. And faculty, right. Thank you.
And thank you again to our esteemed panel. We really appreciate your insight into this important topic that impacts so many students. And we hope that we can continue to partner with you on these issues. And thank you, Linderman, for dropping all those links over there so we could still see it.
I realized I was sending them just to the panelists, so sorry if you saw them twice.
And we will pass it on to Shane now.
Hi guys, thank you so much, Nakali, for handling the panel, and thank you to the panelists. Our transfer team has come up with a policy agenda that I would like to share with you, consisting of 4 different major points. The first one is institutionalized improvements for CUNY offices of transfer. That means institutions should establish a university leadership position at the transfer offices in order to coordinate work across CUNY institutions. All CUNY faculty should be required to attend a professional development training to learn more about transfer students' issues and ways they can better support them. That is a big thing we want to see at the institution level. And transfer agreements between the CUNYs, which leads to my second point, which is certify all CUNY pathway credits are guaranteed to transfer. CUNY pathways established general education requirements and transfer guidelines for all CUNY colleges to follow. However, numerous CUNY colleges are not complying with these requirements, and transfer course credits from previous colleges are not being counted towards a student's degree. CUNY should expand pathways to include major courses completed in order to ensure students are graduating on time and do not have to retake courses when transferring over. CUNY institutions must communicate and meet annually to develop and approve the transfer curriculum and then abide by that curriculum. In order to further develop the transfer experience, My third point is in our policy agenda is to expand resources and increase transparency and efficiency for transfer students. Educating transfer students of resources through facilitation of workshops, information sessions on opportunities will permit them to have all the information they require to succeed academically and socially. We take up a large population in the CUNY system, and these resources are essential to us. The CUNY schools should provide guides to include scholarships, resources, academic calendars with deadlines and critical information to college and career success. Opportunity programs are proven to increase students' graduation rates. If a transfer student was a part of an opportunity program in a previous CUNY institution, they should be allowed to do the same, to go into the same or similar program at their new CUNY institution. Last but not least, provide opportunities for transfer students' engagement and empowerment. So CUNY colleges should develop an incoming transfer students questionnaire for all incoming transfer students that assesses their individual needs and includes questions about the student's experience when they transfer. So all CUNY colleges need to provide a peer-to-peer mentorship program focused on helping transfer students transition into the new campus. We should also push CUNY to lower the student to advisor ratio, which will help ensure transfer students are getting the individualized help they need to succeed. Transfer students are just like any other students who are trying to graduate from college. They should not have to endure impediments from lack of knowledge, resources, or advising. CUNY should prioritize the needs for their college students. If you agree with the seamless CUNY campaign, follow our calls for actions and show us your support. I want to pass the torch to Joseph to finish us off with the call to action. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Hey, everyone. We want to thank you all for sticking around with us. My name is Joseph Torres, and I'm very excited to tell you about our 3 different calls to action, 3 ways you can participate and get more involved in this fight. We would really appreciate your input and contributions, as this will help us gather much needed information in order to better support college students. Personally, I felt lost and confused during my transfer process. I just had no real guidance, which caused me to miss a full semester of school. We have different ways in which you can help support young invincibles and students like us, so things like this doesn't happen to future transfer students. Next slide, please. Now, the first action I will be addressing is a call for CUNY transfer students to submit their transfer experiences via our storytelling tool. We encourage CUNY transfer students to share their experiences with Young Invincibles, so we as advocates can later take these testimonies and share them with New York City leaders to urge them to make the CUNY transfer process seamless. If you're a student who transferred into or within CUNY or know anyone who has, please encourage them to submit their story. The link to submit your transfer experience story will be in the chat. Next slide. Now, action number 2 will be our petition for improvements in the transfer process. This includes having more professional development and training for CUNY's Office of Transfers faculty, a push for the guaranteed transferring of CUNY pathway credits, and the addition of more workshops and information sessions in order to better guide transfer students. The link will be in the chat, and we can use as many responses as possible. This will show the level of those who support what we do and what we stand for to officials and other professionals, while also being a case of strength in numbers that speaks volumes and shows just how serious these issues are to people. So please consider signing our petition today. Next slide. Now, this will lead us to action number 3. We ask you to show your support and sign our pledge. This will be posted in the chat as well. This is a pledge that is about not only the needs of transfer students, but also the needs of students who are homeless, students who are struggling with hunger and food insecurity, and students battling with their mental health. Here, you and your organization can join the movement in a number of ways, such as inviting Young Invincibles to your club meeting to discuss these issues further, sharing Young Invincibles content and information on your social media, and attending future Young Invincibles related meetings. Finally, although today was focused on transfer students, we still encourage everyone to tune in next Thursday, May 6th, for our final day of the summit to hear more from our peers and their work this semester on mental health. We will drop the registration link in the chat. If you registered once already, then you have registered for all 3 days, and there's no need to worry. However, feel free to share the link with students, faculty, admin, neighbors, anyone really. The more the merrier. Again, we encourage all of you to visit and share our calls to action. It is not too late to get involved, and we look forward to receiving, everybody's feedback, everybody's answers. What you guys have to say, in terms of, what we're fighting for, everybody's submissions and seeing what you guys do. And now we'll pass it back over to Shing for closing remarks.
Thank you, Joseph. And thank you all again for joining us tonight. Thank you to the student panelists, Javon, Maheen, Tony, and Amber for sharing your personal stories with us. Thank you to the expert panelists, Dr. Dara Bryne, Assemblywoman Chantel Jackson, Donna Linderman, and Lesley Leppert for your knowledge and insight on the transfer process. We also thank all of you for joining us today on this long-term road to help our students. We look forward to seeing you all a week from today in order to help support our mental health summit. We've heard a lot tonight on the issue that CUNY students face as they attempt to complete their degrees. We would appreciate it if you can all join us in our movement. And of course, you can do that by following us on social media. We'll be dropping all handles in the chat as we wrap up. Be safe and farewell until next time.